gamers, Power Word Heal here, and today we're going to be answering the question, should you get rank 11 on Priest? Or really it's more like rank 10, because that's when the last piece of blue PvP gear is available. So we are going to be looking at the PvP gear, seeing kind of how useful it is. I'm going to be talking about it. It's not just a matter of like if it's quote-unquote BIS or like pre-BIS or not, right? Because we're going to compare it to other items, how hard they are to get, and you know how easy the gear is essentially and stuff like that. So we'll kind of hop right in. I have Atlas loot here, and then we'll just kind of go back to other pieces as needed. I also have some pieces equipped and stuff like that. So we'll go right into the set, and we'll start. We'll go like from right to left, I guess. We'll start with the boots, and then just move on to the rest of it. And we'll talk a little about the set bonuses as well. So the boots themselves are a pretty mediocre piece. These are just bad, I would say, right? Realistically, they're not super terrible or anything, right? You know, if I go and bring up another pair of boots, let's say we bring up the boots from, you know, UBRS, right? We'll go from Upper Blackrock Spire, we'll go to Rend. That's not Rend. And these are the ones that are available. These Faith Healer boots currently aren't available. But, you know, you see I have a pretty similar amount of plus healing, pretty similar amount of int, but these have fire resist, which I think is arguably better for a lot of the PvE you're going to be doing, right? And that's what this video is going to be about, PvE content. If we go into Dire Maul, which I believe north is the one, and then we're going to Captain Crom Crush. These would be like the technical BIS or pre-BIS boots for the phase, right? And these are, you know, certainly better, but they're very similar, at least, right? So the PvP boots are comparable in a lot of cases to other boots that you're going to wear. There's just no particular advantage in wearing them usually. If we go back to them right here, right, and we go to class sets, then priest, we'll go back. Okay, so yeah, there's just no real point in wearing them over other boots, and there's so many other boot options in the game that they're really easy to get. There's the ones from Black Rock Depths, right, off the Golem boss. Then there's the ones from DM North that I just showed you. There's the ones from UBRS, which only require a Rend run. So there's so many boots that are so easy to get, and you're basically never getting PvP gear boots with the intention of like upgrading your boots, right? Now, the one caveat here is that the 2 set obviously, you know, gives you a bit more healing and spell power, right? So this is something to consider if you are using another piece, and we'll kind of talk about other pieces later on. But by themselves, the boots are really nothing special at all. And we'll just go over the other set bonuses now, since we might as well, right? So the 4 set is pretty useless in PvE, in my opinion. You know, it's actually not necessarily terrible for some things in the world. Like if you're doing open world farming, kind of like my other priest, my alt priest is a mining / herbalism. And there'll be some times where you'll come across like a node, mining node, or a herb node where it's being essentially guarded by a mob. Sometimes they pad away, sometimes they don't. And you can just like Psychic Scream. And normally Psychic Scream is fine to get the job done in itself. But if you have like a thorium, like a rich thorium vein that has 4 hits on it, a lot of times it'll kind of circle back the mob and it'll hit you on the last hit. So having the extra second on Psychic Scream is actually probably pretty good in that situation, but that's super, super niche, right? And then the 6th set is plus 20 stamina. So this is just obviously not super great for PvE, right? So yeah, the boots, just very mediocre. We'll do, actually, no, we're going to do these in order that you kind of get them, I think. So I think it's boots and gloves are first. So we'll do the gloves next. So this would be rank 7, I believe, that you get both of these. 50% chance to avoid interruption while casting Mind Blast. Obviously completely useless for PvE healing, and then 21 healing on them, and then 5 intellect. These, in my opinion, are atrocious. That might sound a bit harsh, but the fact that they have 5 intellect is just really terrible. They basically have no stats on them outside of the healing. Like, you could literally get, like, I would think I'd rather have a pair of green healing gloves than this most of the time, because you can get way higher healing. You know, again, if you have nothing else, and especially if you are able of incurring the 2 set, there might be a better argument to make there, right? But realistically, these are just, they get crushed even by previous options, right? I mean, we can obviously just go into BRD here, and we can see the last ball. Where is she? Oh, there she is. Yeah, these are right here, just like really good, right? I think even other stat options are better. So, for example, like in Stratholme, let's off one of these bosses. These gloves, just better. And then obviously your Prophecy gloves from Molten Core are just way better, right? So the gloves from the PvP set, not the best by far. And yeah, just not bothered to really pick these up. So going into the next thing, which is rank 8, and that's going to be the chest and the pants, right? So this is where it gets a bit more interesting, and I think that the main issues with these 2 slots is just that in one case there's a lot of other options, in the other case there's not as many other options, but the options that do exist are amazing. Right, so let's look at the pants first, okay? There's so many amazing pants that you kind of have available at this point. Like, if you're raiding, you have Tier 2 pants, right, which are incredible. You also have Tier 1 pants, which are basically these pants with more stats. And they also help you kind of gain towards your Prophecy 3 set or 5 set, right? Then you have Padre's pants, right, from Dire Maul, which I'll show you guys. Dire Maul West. That's not it. Right here, these are amazing, right? And then you also have the BRD pants right here, which are still kind of decent at least, right? And so there's just so many options of pants that are, like, good, essentially, that the PvP pants are just really nothing special, like, healing-wise, right? As you can see. They pretty much just have, like, less healing across the board. They have less intellect. They have less spirit. The only thing, again, that you're kind of potentially gaining from this is having the 2 set active, right? So, you know, in certain situations where you didn't have any of their pants available and you were using another set piece, then maybe these are worth it. But, you know, you're not going to find yourself in that position super often, right? And, like, one of the things I will say about this gear is that if you're a new priest, kind of like, you know, leveling up, you're just hitting 60, or you've either just hit 60 or you're about to hit 60, the group scene is drying up a little bit, I feel like, in terms of, like, the pre-bis farming. Like, not as much of it is going on as there was. So, you know, the PvP set is a nice deterministic way to get gear, right? If you just sit in AV and you get the requisite honor amounts, which we'll talk about a little bit towards the end, then it's relatively easy to acquire these pieces, right? So that is something right there. It's just that most of the time you can get things far better. And as a healer, you're not necessarily as affected by the group scene drying up as much, because healers are still pretty in demand, I think, for the most part. and it's going to be relatively easy for you to get your Priebus still at this point in the game. On certain classes, like a rogue or something like that, like the damage dealing classes, things are a bit harder because there's not as many groups running, and the groups that are running, they want specific things. They have things hard resed, and as a priest, you're not really going to run into a situation where anything you want is hard resed outside of maybe the trinket from UBRS Jed, right? The reed, and you don't even need that anymore because you have the priest trinket from Diremal plus the one from Angerforge, or not Angerforge, Golem Lord. So as a priest, you can kind of fit into any group you want, and you're always going to have access to the healing gear in that group, most likely, right? So yeah, just really not a big need, I feel like, to go after stuff like this. We'll go to the chest, and the chest is actually kind of like okay as well, but again, if you're comparing it to the strat chest, right, and realistically, like, so we'll look at it's 15 int, right, 6 MP5 and 21 healing effect, right? And in my opinion, if you can't get the strat chest, right, which is, one second, I'll find it here, Strathhome. So if you can't get this, okay, or you're kind of struggling to get it, that chest is not bad overall. It's, if you actually do the stat weights out, it's a lot better than you think, because the 11 Spirit basically converts to 1 MP5, right? So now the other item has 5 MP5 over this instead of 6. You're gaining 10 int from this item, and then you're basically trading, like, what is it? Like, 46 healing for, like, 5 MP5, which is, like, I would say it's close to equivalent. It's just that in most cases, the healing may actually be more beneficial if you're a guild that's, like, not speedrunning, right? So if you're kind of like the guild where you're just stopping a lot to remax your mana and stuff like that, then obviously stuff like plus healing is just going to be more beneficial in those circumstances, right, than having a bunch of MP5, which is kind of meant to work over a long duration of time, right? If you're constantly remaxing your mana, you're not giving MP5 as much time to work, so it just becomes a little bit of a less valuable stat in some of those contexts. But, realistically, it's not like a terrible item. It's just that this item is so easily available. It drops a lot. The instance is easy to do. A lot of people always need to run the instance. You're uncontested when the item drops, right? So, yeah, in my opinion, it's just better, right? It's more time efficient probably to do that, and we'll talk about how long it takes to get the PvP gear in a sec. But we'll just hop back to the class sets here, right? So that's the chest, and that's the pants. I would say that the pants and the chest are definitely a step up from the boots and the hands, right? And then when you combined the two sets, so if you were to use maybe the pants and the chest, then you kind of come into an interesting situation where, things like maybe sort of okay, but you're still losing out on healing overall if you were to have the two best Priebus items in place of these pieces. And then if you actually count raid items, they just get completely blown away, right? But that being said, we'll move on to the final two pieces of gear for the rank 10 set. And this is the mantle and the hood. And these are by far the best pieces, I would say. I think it's like not even close out of the set. So it's kind of like one of those situations where it's a little bit unfortunate, because if you want to be going for pieces at all that are kind of good in this set, the best ones are definitely rank 10, which is like the furthest to progress to. So let's just take a look at these, right? So 16 healing, 12 intellect, and 6 mana per 5 seconds. So I think these are actually kind of like the best in slot shoulders in this phase still. There's really nothing that's like better than these shoulders unless you're using prophecy shoulders specifically for a set bonus. But basically every other pair of shoulders is like the same amount of healing. In some cases, there's a little bit more healing, right? I think the only thing you can make an argument for is like the wizard, the BOE wizard one has like 20 int and like 11 healing or something like that. And then there's like Burial Shawl, which I don't even know if that's in the game yet, but if it is, it's like 20 int, 20 healing or something like that, but it doesn't have the MP5. So these are just the best Priebus, and then if we compare it to Molten Core items, right, which is here, and we're going Sulfuron. Okay, so if you compare it here, you know, the other ones are just better, I think, right? I mean, granted, these do give a lot of... how I would look at it is you can convert the 10 Spirit to 1 MP5, right? So you have a 5 MP5 advantage and like a 6 healing advantage. And then you're losing maybe like 10 int or something like that, 12 int. So realistically, these are very comparable, right, to the PvP set. And I think it kind of just depends on what do you have in the other slot, right? Or sorry, what do you need for set bonuses? It's like if you're going to hit a set bonus by using Prophecy, you might want to use the Prophecy. But if you're not going to hit a set bonus and you're going to get the set bonus for the PvP gear, then the PvP gear is probably actually better, right? So just some things to think about there. So we'll kind of go back to the PvP class sets. Okay. So, yeah, these are pretty decent. They might actually be, like, the best item in the entire set, realistically. But they are rank 10, so it's one of the hardest to get. And then we'll go over to the head, and the head is just pretty decent. It's got, good intellect, a decent amount of plus healing, and MP5 again. This set is, like, really big on the MP5. And I think this is by far going to be your best Priebus option. It's not even really close in my opinion. The problem is with the ease of, how easily available Onyxia helms are, right? If we go to Dungeons and Raids, and then we go down to Onyxia's Lair, and we go to Halo of Transcendence, you get like a really good helm from doing Onyxia, right? So it's like 26 healing more, you're losing the MP5, you really gain like 4 MP5 because the 22 Spirit converts to MP5, right? And then you have you're probably losing like 9 intellect or something. So this is in my opinion, I would probably use this helm over the other helm, but this helm is just so much easier to get is the problem, right? It's just so much easier, typically speaking. Because a lot of times, especially on Horde, you don't really run that many priests, right? And this drops all the time. So you can run Onyxia more frequently than you can run Molten Core. So if you're really trying to get your tier 2 helm, it just shouldn't really be an issue in the long term, right? And I don't necessarily see the PvP helm being better. So we'll kind of go back into the PvP. Just look at it again. So yeah, I mean it's close, right? I mean at best you could just say the stat distribution is a little bit different, right? And like they're relatively equivalent. That's like pretty much the best you could say. And it's kind of a lot of work. So I've mentioned that a couple times now, right? It's a little bit of work to get these sets. And we'll kind of discuss exactly what that means. So basically, how the new PvP system works is that it doesn't rank you against other players anymore in terms of like how much honor they got versus how much you got and then put you into a bracket. It doesn't do that anymore. Instead, the brackets are now just fixed. And what that means is that in a lot of cases, especially as you go up towards like the higher ranks, things become a little bit easier, right? Because you're not having to worry about being in direct competition from PvP, from people who are just PvPing all the time, right? Nobody can like artificially inflate the amount of honor required to get into a bracket because all the brackets are fixed. So, for example, I don't know what the one for week 1 is, but I think for week 2 it was like 100 and some K to cap out. You can basically go from rank 0 to rank 4 and change, then you go from rank 4 and change to rank 7 and change, and then from rank 7 and change to rank 9 and change, and then you go to rank 11 on the 4th week. So you can do it in 4 weeks, I believe, if you want to go to 11 or 10. And basically it's like, I think it's like 40K honor, and then like 100 and some K, and then 256K, I believe, is the week to go from 7 to 9. And then to go from 9 to 11, I'm not sure what it is, but I know to go from like 9 to 10 at that point, it's only 100 and some K, because you're really far into rank 9. So, it's a decent investment of time. I mean, realistically, what it more comes down to is just like the kind of like the period is over a long time, right? But the actual time you're investing per week may not be a lot, because if you're really like spamming AV, it probably is only going to take you like maybe 2 days to hit like 250K, which if you're just trying to get rank 10, you only do that once to hit it in the quickest amount of time. And you can get way less honor than that, right? And still progress the ranks. It's just going to go slower. So, it does take like a reasonable amount of time. Is maybe like a day or 2 of queuing AV a lot. Maybe like 3. Depends on what you consider a lot of AV in a day, right? But also depends on kind of like your RNG, if you're pre-mating, stuff like that. But it's not that hard to get the honor. It's just that it's going to take you the time no matter what, right? Because you can only go up so much every week, and no matter what, it's going to take you 4 weeks to hit rank 10/11. So, yeah, I mean, just a couple things to keep in mind is that, like, if you're starting a new character and you're like, oh, well, I really want the helm and the shoulders, and you're kind of like focusing on getting those, you may actually get upgrades for those as you're progressing to rank 10 or 11, right? So I guess kind of like the moral of the story is I would not really hang your hat on getting anything specific PvP gear wise for PvE healing. Like, obviously, if you want to do PvP in it, that's fine. That's what it's for, right? But if you're specifically worried about maybe acquiring this gear for PvE healing, I really wouldn't be that worried. The possible exception is if you do plan on trying to get rank 14 later, then currently what happens is when you hit a rank, you're just at that rank for life. So you actually don't go down at all, which means that it's not really that bad to just knock some of the stuff out of the way now, right? Because if you get rank 10 or 11, you only have the 3 or 4 ranks to go, essentially, when they release the gear that's higher than rank 11. Like, you're not going to lose any progress, right, having done the ranking early. So just something to keep in mind there. If you do want to go for the weapons and stuff like that and the epic armor, then that's something to consider. But if you're not going to go for any of the epic armor or the epic weapons, then I think you can pretty much just skip most of the blue set here for PvE, because you're just likely going to have better. Now, if I were going to use pieces, right, which ones would I use? So that's a good question, and I think it's going to mostly be the shoulders, the head, or the boots, and I'll kind of like explain why, right? So as we went over, the shoulders are just, so you can make the argument that they're the best, like pound for pound, best shoulder piece you have currently in the game, right? So that's kind of pretty self-explanatory. And then realistically, when we're looking for other pieces to use, I think if you're going to use the shoulders, the mindset should be I want 2 set, right? Because then you get the extra bonus. So if you want 2 set, there's a couple options you could go, right? I think the gloves are the worst option, obviously, right? Because the prophecy gloves are so good. I think the pants are just bad because both the Transcendence and the Prophecy pants are amazing, and those both contribute to a good set bonus. And then on top of that, if you don't have those and you have the Padres, they're just flat out straight better than this anyway, right? So not so great there. You could use the chest, But like I said, I just tend to find that the chest from strat is better in a lot of cases, you know? And I think that I would honestly rather have even the potentially the prophecy chest than this, although that's maybe a bit of a more difficult argument to make. But if I'm going for set bonuses, right, I don't really mind the prophecy chest. And I look at the boots, and the boots aren't good, right? But it's all relative, right? Because none of the other boot options are good, and that's how you're going to be looking at gear a lot of times, right? It's not necessarily like, is this item good? It's how does it compare to other items in its class? And the boots compare pretty favorably with most items in their class, right? If you compare these boots to pretty much any other boots, you're basically losing like 6 to 8 healing tops, you know, maybe a bit more, maybe like 12 healing in the worst case scenario or something like that, which is basically nothing after you factor in the coefficients especially. And then you're pretty much not losing any intellect, and you're losing the equivalent of what would be like 1 MP5 in spirit, right? So I think the boots were actually like a strong option, and I think using the shoulders and the boots to get the 2 set is actually like pretty reasonable in a lot of cases. You could also do shoulders and helm, right? Especially if you don't have the tier 2 helm. And the thing about the helm slot is that, in particular in this phase right now, it's this combination of shoulders and helm is a little bit better than it will be in Blackwing Lair. Because in Blackwing Lair, you have access to your 3 set on tier 2, right? We'll kind of just show the bracers here. So you have access to this 3 set, allows 15% of your mana to continue while casting, which is just huge. So you basically need to be using 3 set once you have it available, and the tier 2 helm is one of the best pieces you can use for your 3 set. So that immediately makes the PvP gear lose value, the PvP helm, right? Because you just don't want that slot to be taken up by the PvP helm, because you'd rather have the Transcendence there, because it's actually a good piece of Transcendence, because not every piece of Transcendence is amazing or good, right? So you obviously want to pick the ones that are good, and that's basically the best one, or one of the best ones, right? Same thing with kind of like the pants, right? Where, you know, you don't really want to be using the PvP pants because they're just, first of all, inferior, straight up, but then also the tier 2 pants are just absolutely amazing for the set bonus, right? And they're a good piece to have to actually acquire that set bonus. So those are the type of things you have to keep in mind. And but I think in this particular phase where you don't have access to the 3 set of tier 2, then this helm does gain a little bit of value, because especially if you don't have Transcendent Helm, this is probably just the best helm you can get as a priest. And then even if you do have Transcendent Helm, you could argue that this is a fairly equivalent helm, and if you're getting the set bonus from this, right, the 2 set, it actually, you could even argue, maybe puts it ahead of the Transcendence Helm slightly in certain situations where you don't have access to 3 set tier 2. So yeah, that is basically my thoughts on the PvP gear. Too Long Didn't Read it's, you know, pretty mediocre. And I wouldn't go out of my way to get it if you are just trying to heal PvE. It's not something that you really have to worry about. It's not something that you have to care about at all. So, yeah. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you found this helpful at all, please like, comment, and subscribe. And we will be doing one of these for rank 11 to 14, potentially closer to when that's going to release, because I actually don't think it's going to be out for a while. It sounds like they're going to do it after Blackwing Lair, but I think it's not going to be like the moment Blackwing Lair releases, you know? I think it might be like 4, 5, 6 weeks into Blackwing Lair even, could be. And if that's the case, then that's when you're going to be able to start progressing from 11, right? So then you still have weeks on top of that to get to the actual gear itself. So yeah, I don't think we have to worry about that for a while, but I just wanted to make a video. Oh, if you guys are curious on what rank 11 actually is, it's for the mount, I believe. So yeah, that's why that's what the reward is at 11. And any of the rewards that are like early are completely garbage. So before the actual blue set here, like the bracers and stuff like that, they all tend to be pretty bad. The only good item is obviously the PvP trinket, but that's more of a PvP thing. You can equip it in certain cases in PvE, like when you know you're going to be crowd controlled, but for the most part, you know, you want to be using trinkets with actual healing on them. So, but it's good to have, honestly. Getting rank 3, I would say getting rank 3 is something everybody should do, because just having the PvP trinket available is good. And there's just no denying that. I think it can be good even for PvE in certain cases. So it's just good to have, and it's very easy to get rank 3. You know, you'll get that not even trying. So yeah, but that's basically it. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you found this enjoyable, and talk to you guys next time.